The headlines at 6. Shameful and disgraceful. Northern Ireland's police chief condemns rioting in Belfast and praises his injured officers.
They were brilliant in the interests of everybody in Northern Ireland in making sure that the rule of law was upheld at some personal cost.
A train crash which left 6 people dead in France may have been caused by a faulty connector on the track, according to investigators. A serious case review is launched after the bodies of a mother and her 2 sons were found in Devon. And in the next hour, soaring temperatures as much of the UK swelters in the sun, but health experts warn children and the elderly in particular to take care as the heatwave shows no signs of going away.
And I'm Ollie Foster at Trent Bridge. England need just 4 more wickets to win. Australia less than 150 runs. There's a thrilling climax to the first Ashes test.
Well, hello, very good evening. Welcome to BBC News. Police in Northern Ireland are drafting in 400 more officers from across the UK after a night of rioting in Belfast, which left a Member of Parliament and 32 police officers injured. The trouble flared at the end of the annual Orange Order parades, marking the 12th of July. The North Belfast MP Nigel Dodds was knocked unconscious during the violence, which broke out when Loyalist marchers were stopped from passing through a nationalist area of the city. Gordon Adair reports.
Seething with anger and aggression, a Loyalist protester manages to snatch a baton from a police officer. He then uses it to attack the officer's colleagues as they battle to contain the situation. These pictures were released this morning by the Police Service of Northern Ireland. 32 officers were injured during 6 hours of rioting, which began when the police stopped an Orange Order parade from passing a nationalist area. 2 of those officers had been brought in from other parts of the UK under the Mutual Aid scheme. From Northern Ireland's Chief Constable, there was stinging criticism of some of the Orange Order's leadership.
Some of their language was emotive, and having called thousands of people to protest, they had no plan and no control. And rather than being responsible, I think the word for that is reckless.
For its part, the Orange Order chose not to respond to the criticism. Last night, it suspended its protest. Today, the Northern Ireland Secretary of State, Theresa Villers, urged it to call it off and resume dialogue with residents opposed to the parade.
I mean, that is the way to build a sustainable solution in North Belfast. Of course it isn't easy, and as I said, those responsible for last night's violence have made it much more difficult.
The Unionist MP Nigel Dodds was knocked unconscious during last night's trouble. Today, his party colleague Nelson McCausland criticised the police. He said officers from other parts of the UK should not have been deployed on the front line as they didn't understand the local sensitivities.
There are questions to be asked about the actual policing of the event on the night. A large number of baton rounds were fired, a number of people, significant injuries that they suffered. But we need to find a way of getting through all this. And I would urge calm, I would urge people to be peaceful and show restraint. And it's important that we set ourselves an immediate task. Let's get rid of the Parades Commission.
But the Westminster government supports using officers from the rest of the country, and hundreds more are arriving today in a bid to stop any recurrence of the violence. Gordon Adair, BBC News, Belfast.
Well, tensions remain high ahead of any protest tonight, as Gordon told me a short time ago.
The Chief Constable, when I spoke to him this morning, was trying to play down the possibility of any repeat of the violence tonight, but there is an ongoing flag protest, an ongoing protest in Belfast over the removal of the Union flag from City Hall, and it was going on this afternoon, and I had an opportunity to chat to some police officers there on the ground, and there is a good deal of concern. It's simply nobody knows whether there's going to be any repeat of this evening. I think the fact that the Orange Order protest is suspended will make little difference to a lot of those people who you saw on the police video. So it's really just a matter of waiting and seeing. As I say, there are extra officers brought over. The Chief Constable is confident they can deal with any situation, but just exactly what's going to happen, it's impossible to say it.
Gordon Adair. Now, the rail crash in France, which killed 6 people, is being blamed on a set of points close to the scene of the accident. And Crosso, they're live now, where they still have heavy lifting equipment, a special crane which has been constructed and now looks like it's poised to start lifting part of the train up from the station, the overturned train between the platforms there. Senior managers at the state-run company, SNCF, have revealed their initial findings of the investigation. This is at Bretigny, and they say that a metal bar holding 2 sections of track had worked its way loose. That's at switching points just outside the station, and that bar then caught some of the carriages, stopping their progress. Chris Morris reports from the scene.
This is the scene of France's worst railway disaster in many years, where a high-speed intercity train heading south jumped off the track at a local station. They're still picking through the wreckage, looking for any bodies that may still be trapped. There are already multiple casualties, and some of the injured are in a critical condition.
So this is the front of the train that left Paris yesterday afternoon. Behind me you can see carriage number 4 on its side, but it's the rest of the train a bit further down the track that became uncoupled and careered into the station at Bretigny.
It was a moment of terror, not just for hundreds of people on board the train, but also for many in the station about to travel on a holiday weekend.
During those 40 seconds we were petrified. We stood still in a tunnel leading to the exit of the train station. Pieces of the wall kept falling. We waited for the pieces to stop falling to leave the station safely.
And evidence is now emerging about what may have caused this crash. The state-run railway company SNCF says it believes a piece of metal became detached from the switching points on the track, about 200 metres from the station, close to where the train began to derail. SNCF says it will now check thousands of similar points across the rail network. But questions will inevitably be asked about whether much more could or should have been done to prevent a tragedy. Chris Morris, BBC News, Bretigny.
Police investigating the deaths of a mother and her 2 sons in Devon say the family were known to social services. The bodies of Catherine Hooper and her 5-year-old son Joshua were found yesterday at the bottom of a cliff in Dartmoor. Her 2-year-old son Samuel was found dead at home. Officers confirmed they're not looking for anyone else in connection, as Sarah Ransom reports.
All day, a stream of friends and neighbours have been coming to lay floral tributes and soft toys, many shocked and stunned at the deaths.
Just out of the blue, shouldn't have happened.
Gorgeous, gorgeous little boys, and everybody's just distraught over it.
Rescue teams were called to the base of a 100-foot rock at this popular beauty spot on Dartmoor. There they found the bodies of 24-year-old Catherine Hooper and her 5-year-old son Joshua. Later, when police went to their home 20 miles away, they found the body of her 2-year-old Samuel.
The boy's father, Neil Patterson, says he's devastated at the 3 deaths. Today, it's emerged Catherine Hooper was known to social services, and the police say they've now referred the matter to a serious case review in order to establish if the authorities could have done more to help the family.
Torbay Council says this is a tragic incident and is offering all the support it can to those affected. This is a murder inquiry, but detectives say they're not looking for anyone else as they try to piece together the events that led to the deaths of a young mother and her 2 young sons. Sarah Ransom, BBC News, Paignton.
Police investigating a nail bomb at a mosque or near a mosque in the West Midlands are carrying out a controlled explosion on part of the device. The Kanzul Imam Majid Mosque in Tipton was attacked yesterday afternoon. No one was injured. Police are treating it as an act of terrorism. Assistant Chief Constable Marcus Beale from West Midlands Police says everything has been done to catch whoever is behind the attack.
The West Mids Counter-Terrorism Unit, supported by the wider counter-terrorism network, are pouring all of their specialist and capability resources into examining the scene. It's quite a complicated scene, and there's quite an extensive area that we need to search. As you can imagine, if there's been items exploded across an area, but we'll methodically search those so we can maximise the chances of getting that tiny piece of evidence that will help us bring to justice the perpetrator for this awful event.
Assistant Chief Constable there, and religious leaders are appealing for calm. Local Imam Gulen Razul says interfaith relations will be strengthened.
For those who wish to divide us and the fringe elements that may wish to exploit this situation, we have this message. We are one borough, we are one community that remains united in defiance of extremism, wherever it may come from, united in support of strong community and interfaith relations, and united in our belief that this is a borough and a country that values freedom of speech, expression and religious coexistence. Acts such as these will only strengthen our resolve and not break it.
A bomb attack on a cafe in the northern Iraqi city of Kirkuk has killed at least 38 people. The explosion happened just after sunset as large numbers of people gathered to break their fast on the first Friday of Ramadan. Tensions between Iraq's Sunni and Shia communities have increased this year. More than 2,500 Iraqis have died in violent attacks since April. In Egypt, the Public Prosecutor's Office has said it is investigating complaints against the deposed President Mohamed Morsi and other senior leaders of his Muslim Brotherhood. The accusations include spying, inciting the killing of protesters, attacking military barracks and damaging the economy. Well, James Reynolds is in Cairo for us now. James, just tell us more about what exactly he's accused of, because, of course, his detention is causing a great deal of tension.
It is, and it looks like a complaint has been lodged with the Public Prosecutor's Office for a number of reasons: damaging the economy, inciting violence among protesters, and even espionage. We don't know much more than that about the detail of those allegations. We don't even know who filed that particular complaint. All we know is that that complaint at the moment is in the hands of the state prosecutor here in Cairo. And if normal procedure is followed, the prosecutor would open a file. He would then possibly question the deposed president, Mr. Morsi, who's still under detention at the moment, and the other Muslim Brotherhood leaders before deciding whether or not to file charges. I think the larger point that this makes is this: the chances of reconciliation between the new authorities and the deposed president are pretty slim, if non-existent.
I mean, it is difficult to see how accusing him in this way actually helps anything, because presumably it just entrenches the polarised positions.
I think that's exactly right. And I think when you sweep away all the details, essentially there are two large institutions in this country: the army on one side, the armed forces, and the Muslim Brotherhood on the other side. And it appears that there is an incredible division and gulf between those two, epitomised by this new complaint, albeit filed by an individual or an organisation we don't understand. But nevertheless, the military is the essential power in this country.
And of course, we've seen both sides continuing to mobilise huge numbers of people.
Particularly in the last few days, pro-Morsi demonstrators have wanted to show that they are not going away. They've held their own vigil, their own sit-in protest in Cairo. They say that they want to continue and escalate this protest until the deposed president is reinstated. But that may be a very slim, if not remote or impossible prospect at the moment.
Well, where does it feel this is going now? I mean, there doesn't seem to be any sign of it dampening down at all, quite the reverse.
It's difficult to say. If one of the major things that needs to be achieved politically, a lot of people believe, is this: some form of reincorporating the Muslim Brotherhood into the political process. That's a party, a movement which gained more than half the popular vote last year when Mr. Morsi was elected president. Essentially, over the next few months, politicians here may have to try to find ways of reincorporating that 50% of the population into the political process, with a new constitution, with the prospect of parliamentary and presidential elections early next year. But of course, some people would say that it's very difficult to reincorporate incorporate the Muslim Brotherhood, while at the same time the prosecutor's office is investigating complaints against that same movement.
I mean, that timetable came out a few days ago, and there had been huge pressure for a timetable, but it felt as if that was almost too late. I mean, it came out just after the 50 or so supporters of Muslim Brotherhood were killed. So, I mean, does it seem as if it is having any impact at all?
No, it doesn't, and it's very hard to detect any moves in the last 10 days or so which would lead to reconciliation between the armed forces and their supporters and the popular movement of secularists on the one hand and the Muslim Brotherhood on the other hand. If you look at all the moves that have been taken over the last 10 days, it's difficult to point to any move which would lead towards reconciliation. Very clearly, the interim president has laid out this roadmap towards a transition back to elected democracy, with suggestions for a constitution, then parliamentary and presidential elections. But a lot of people have criticised the way in which the constitution may be written or amended, saying that essentially not enough people may be consulted.
All right, James in Cairo, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, the way terminally ill people are looked after in hospital looks set for a fundamental change. At the moment, doctors across the UK and indeed the world use a system which is known as the Liverpool Care Pathway, and that can involve the withdrawal of medication, of food and also fluids. Doctors say the system is a great improvement, offering people a peaceful, pain-free death. But the government says it wants a process better tailored to the needs of individual patients. Jane Frances Kelly reports.
The Liverpool Care Pathway was developed in the 1990s to provide a model of best practice in the care of dying patients. Its intention is to ensure their final days are dignified and peaceful. This can mean an end to invasive tests, treatment and feeding through tubes in consultation with the patient, their family or carer. Marie Curie Cancer Care, which helped pioneer the LCP model, says it can be very effective when implemented properly.
When it works well, it works very well, and patients appreciate, patients and families appreciate what's happening. But it requires a lot of training and education to put it in place and make it work properly.
The Department of Health in England set up an independent review amid fears the system was being used to hasten death, to clear beds and to save money. It also appeared some families were not being consulted. Officials say the review team encountered numerous examples of poor implementation and worrying standards of care, and are likely to conclude it needs to be replaced. The Care Minister, Norman Lamb, said in a statement, "We need a new system of better end-of-life care tailored to the needs of individual patients and involving their families." The British Medical Association says confidence can only be restored if patients are given the opportunity to discuss a personalised end-of-life plan with medical staff.
I think the first thing is simple and clear communication about what the plan entails, and decision making that's shared between the patient and the person caring for him and her or her. And secondly, I think making sure that everybody who then becomes involved in delivering that care knows what the plan is and is properly trained to carry out those elements of it that are their responsibility.
The findings of the review are due to be published in detail on Monday. Jane Frances Kelly, BBC News.
Right, the headlines now on BBC News. And the head of the police service in Northern Ireland says the rioting in Belfast last night, in which 32 officers were injured, was shameful and disgraceful. French investigators say the rail crash which killed 6 people was caused by a loose connector on the track. And a serious case review is launched after the bodies of a mother and her 2 sons were found in Devon. And in a moment, trade unionists celebrated the Durham Miners' Gala as the row over Labour Party funding continues. Well, air accident investigators say that the fire on board an empty Boeing 787 Dreamliner aircraft at Heathrow Airport yesterday was not caused by the plane's batteries. This news coming out just a moment ago. Earlier this year, all 50 Dreamliner aircraft were grounded for a while because batteries overheated on 2 of the planes. And yesterday, shares in Boeing fell sharply after the fire was discovered. Well, our business correspondent Joe Lynham is with us now. Boeing will be breathing a sigh of relief over this, Joe.
Absolutely, and watch that share price on Monday to see how it reacts. It spiked downwards about 7% yesterday before finishing -5 for the day, because this is a major airplane. This is the flagship airplane for Boeing, and if there was a recurrence of the battery problem that grounded the entire fleet and cost an estimated $600 million for Boeing, then there would have been major crisis in Seattle. As it is, at this relatively early stage in the investigation, it doesn't appear as if the fire on board yesterday was anywhere near the battery. There are tortuously worded sentences used in the release for obvious reasons, because this is a multi-billion-pound investment. This is something that they don't want to end up in court in any way, shape or form, because there are always losers and lawyers will be the only winners in this one. For now, massive sigh of relief in Seattle.
They haven't actually said what has caused it, of course, but it presumably could be anything. I mean, you mentioned the financial cost of Boeing. Reputationally, it was extremely damaging as well, and they were never entirely convinced about, or convincing, as to what was causing that battery problem. They were satisfied they'd made it safe, but they weren't sure of the actual cause, which meant that this was really such a worrying moment.
What they managed to do in the initial fires at the start of this year was to convince the safety experts, the experts who examine planes following instances like this, that they would encase the battery in so much protective casing, steel and whatever it's made of, that it would never happen again. You are right, though. They didn't say why there were sparks in these batteries, but everything is so new in this plane. Most of the plane is made of plastic. It's made of carbon composites. The battery is completely new. It uses a different type of electronics, and as a result, everything is kind of being tested for the first time. Teething problems are always the case in brand new aircraft. The 747's been around for over 40 years. It had major delays, albeit no fires on board. And there's something very primeval about fire on a plane. And as a result, they had to get this right. And so it would have been horrendous for Boeing and for the air accident investigation people if it transpired that the batteries that they signed off on to let back in the skies weren't in fact fully in order.
OK, having said that, we still have to wait for what the actual cause of this was. But Joe, thank you very much. Thank you. Now, on to politics here. The union row with the Labour Party. The head of the RMT union, Bob Crow, has told his members that they should sever ties with Labour and form a party of their own. In his address to the annual Durham Miners' Gala, Mr Crow said Labour leader Ed Miliband shown unions contempt with his plans to end their automatic affiliation to the party. Our correspondent Stuart Flinders has spent the day at Durham.
Well, yes, an opportunity today to gauge reaction from the wider Labour movement to Ed Miliband's proposals for a change in the way that the unions fund the Labour Party, and Bob Crow perhaps at the extreme end of that reaction in calling for a completely new Labour Party. This is what he had to say shortly after making his speech here this afternoon.
We want the best extracts of the Labour Party to come into a new party of Labour. The Labour Party's done some fantastic things. After the war, it brought in a national health service, it brought in comprehensive education, it built council houses. This particular political party wants to carry down the same fiscal route as the Tories and Liberals and attack working people, keep pay freezes in place, and I can't see no difference between the three main political parties.
But there's no real support for a new party, is there?
I think there is. I think there is.
Where's that coming from? Not from the other union leaders?
Well, at the end of the day, sometimes it's the people at the top that get the message the last. Go to those people into villages and towns where their work is being shut down, they can't get a social house. Ask these people that are leaving school who can't find a job, want apprenticeships. Ask these people now that have had pay freezes for 3 to 4 years. I mean, you've got nurses, for example, who had a pay rise for 4 years. And these MPs in Parliament, I'm not against the MPs having a pay rise, but I wish they fought in Parliament for the nurses and doctors to have a pay rise like they're fighting for themselves.
Well, no obvious support here for a new party from the other union leaders speaking here today, but Len McCluskey, the General Secretary of Unite, said, "I'm ready for reform." In his speech, he described Ed Miliband's call last week as the biggest ever shake-up in Labour's relationship with the unions, and here's a flavour of his speech to the gala this afternoon.
I'm a supporter of Ed Miliband. He's best when he's boldest, when he boldly challenges the media tycoons like Rupert Murdoch, when he challenges the corporate giants not paying their fair taxes, when he challenges privilege, inequality and poverty. So let me say this about the new proposals. If we are to go out and convince thousands of working class men and women that they want to sign up to the Associate Labour Party membership, those workers will not be interested in the rule book or even our history. They will want to know, will Labour make a difference? Will the next Labour government reverse the present coalition's disastrous policy? Will it be different, not just from Cameron and his crew, but from the Blair Brown years as well? Sisters and brothers, if we can say yes, Labour has leaned and Labour is on your side, then this scheme will work. But if our people, our members, are unclear as to the answer, then no amount of persuading will get them to sign up. So I say this to Ed. The people here today are the people you should seek to represent. And the future is in your hands. My challenge to you is, make Labour the party we all want. The party of equality, justice, fairness, and yes, the party of socialism. Then nothing can stop us, because it will mean that the values that we all share here today, the values of the Durham coalfields, are back where they belong, at the heart of our movement and our party. Keep the belief, comrades.
Well, Len McCluskey there calling for reform, but the leader of the TUC, Frances O'Grady, saw no problem in her speech with the arrangements as they are. She said union donations are the cleanest in politics. Let's not forget, she said, that the Conservatives source most of their funding from city banks, hedge funds and big business.
Stuart Flinders there over the River Wear in Durham. Now, temperatures have hit 30 degrees in London, as southern England in particular has sweated its way through what's been the hottest day of the year so far, still is. Weather experts say the heat wave will continue into next week, with no rain forecast for the next 7 to 10 days. This is the scene from the BBC's Broadcasting House. Actually, and Regent's Park is just off into the blue sky behind Broadcasting House. Now, reporter Sangeeta Maisker is there, soaking up the sunshine. Well, it all looks quite delightful, Sangeeta.
It is, although I have to say it is bordering on uncomfortable if you're out here without any shade, without enough cold drinks to be consuming throughout the day. We've met lots of people who have been out for hours and hours, but I have to say most of them fairly well kitted out for the day. As you say, 30 degrees centigrade in London makes this the hottest day so far of the summer in England and Wales. A lot of that hot weather moving down from Northern Ireland and Scotland, which are now considerably cooler. Parts of southern England being declared now in a level 3 heat wave. That means that if you have a chronic illness, you're elderly, or you have small children, special precautions need to be undertaken by those people. So keep out of the sun, use appropriate sun cream, keep cool, all of those things. But as you say, Chris, out here people just loving every moment. How are they, and have they been keeping cool throughout the day? I've been asking them.
Sun cream, water, fruit. We've got our 5 a day here, don't you worry. And yeah, water. So yeah, no, we're really enjoying it. Why would you go anywhere else other than Britain when you got this?
Is your umbrella working for you?
Yes, definitely. Otherwise, I'll become a roasted chicken already.
No, I was born for the sunshine. Born for the sun. I've got to let all these lovely girls see me.
We're loving it. We've been waiting a long time. 2 years of rain and more rain and more rain, so this is absolutely lovely.
As you say, Chris, I think people are really just desperately happy that we finally got some hot weather. As you say, in southern England at least, over the next 7 days, we're expecting temperatures to continue into the 20s, so somewhere around the mid-20s, I think, for southern England. Of course, if you're in Scotland or Northern Ireland, much cooler, and warnings that there could be thunderstorms ahead.
All right, Sangeeta, excellent. Put a hat on. Thank you very much indeed. Thanks. Sangeeta Maisker there in central London. Let's get an idea of what is in store. Here's the forecast now of how